Hey everyone, I've been lurking here for a while, but after everything that's happened, I needed to share my story. I'm still trying to wrap my head around everything, so bear with me. My name's James, I'm 52, and my soon-to-be ex-wife, Linda, is 48. We've been together for 25 years, married since our mid-20s. Honestly, if you asked anyone a couple of years ago, they'd say we were the perfect couple. We built a beautiful life together, 2 grown kids, a house in the suburbs, the works. I'm a self-made businessman. I started from scratch, built a company that took off, and now we're sitting on a fortune, $40 million to be exact. Linda was by my side during those early years, and I never thought she'd be capable of what she did. Looking back, the signs were there. She started acting strange about a year ago. Long girls' nights out, constantly glued to her phone, and more distant than ever before. But I trusted her. I mean, how could I not? After 25 years together, I never even imagined she'd have it in her to betray me like this. Started subtle, like a bad itch you can't quite scratch. Linda had always been social, but suddenly her girls' nights became more frequent. Every week, then every few days. She'd tell me she was out with her friends, Jessica or Amy, sipping wine, and that I should stop worrying so much. But something didn't sit right. When you've been with someone for as long as I've been with Linda, you can sense the shift. She stopped looking me in the eye, always glued to her phone, typing away with that stupid little grin on her face. I let it go for a while, convincing myself I was overthinking. But then, she started leaving the room whenever she got a text or a call. She'd tell me she was going for a walk, but she'd come back home hours later. One night, she didn't come back at all. When I called, she said she was staying over at Jessica's place because they drank too much wine. Fine, I thought. Maybe I'm just getting paranoid. Maybe I'm too stressed out with work. I mean, I've been so busy expanding my business. Then I found the first piece of evidence. It was a Sunday, and Linda had left her phone on the kitchen counter while she was in the shower. That's when I heard it vibrate. Again and again. Something just snapped inside me, and I grabbed the phone, opened it, and there it was. A text from some guy named Mike, saying, "Last night was incredible. Can't wait to see you again." My stomach turned, and I swear, I felt like someone had punched me in the gut. But I didn't confront her right away. No, I wanted more. I needed to know the full extent of her betrayal before I said anything. I started checking her phone whenever I could. Texts, emails, everything. And the more I dug, the worse it got. Turns out, she'd been sneaking around with this Mike guy for months. They were meeting up while I was at work, hooking up in hotel rooms, and she was even using the money I earned to fund their little rendezvous. She was leading a double life right under my nose, and I had no idea. What made it even worse was that she'd been lying to my face every single day, pretending like everything was fine. She was still telling me she loved me, still acting like the caring wife, but the whole time, she was sleeping with another man. And not just any man. Some low-life loser who probably had no idea how much she was living off my hard-earned fortune. But I was patient. I waited for the right moment to confront her, and trust me, when I did, it was explosive. I was about to flip her world upside down. I'll never forget the day I finally confronted her. It was a Tuesday evening, and she had just come back from one of her so-called yoga classes. She was still in her leggings, acting like nothing was wrong, and I could feel the rage boiling inside me. I had seen another string of messages that morning, and this time it was worse. Photos, explicit messages, things that made my skin crawl. It was like she was mocking me with how casual she was about it all. I decided I wasn't going to tiptoe around it anymore. I waited until after dinner. We were sitting on the couch, the TV on in the background, and I looked over at her. She didn't even notice the storm that was about to hit. "So, how's Mike?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Her face immediately dropped. She froze for a second, blinked, then gave me this confused look. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the guy you've been screwing behind my back for months. Mike, the one you've been texting, Meeting at hotels, the one you've been lying to me about, I said, the words dripping with anger. She stared at me wide-eyed, and then, get this, she laughed. You're crazy, James. You seriously think I'd cheat on you? She said, shaking her head like I was some paranoid idiot. But I wasn't done. I pulled out my phone and opened her messages on my screen. I had screenshots of everything. Every filthy message, every hotel reservation, every photo. I shoved the phone in her face, and that's when the color drained from her cheeks. She couldn't deny it anymore. I could see her scrambling for an excuse, but all she did was stand there, silent, mouth open like a fish out of water. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she spoke. It's not what you think, James. It was just a fling. It didn't mean anything. You've been so busy with work, and I was lonely. I didn't think you'd even notice. Her voice was cold, robotic, like she was reading from a script. There wasn't an ounce of remorse in her tone. And that's when I knew. She didn't care. She wasn't sorry. This wasn't a mistake. This was who she was. A liar, a cheater, a selfish, manipulative bitch who didn't give a damn about me, our marriage, or the life we built together. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I just stood there, looking at her, feeling every emotion crash over me like a tidal wave. Anger, betrayal, disgust. I wanted to hurt her the way she'd hurt me, but I also wanted answers. Why? After 25 years, why would she throw it all away for some guy who couldn't even compare to what we had? But her answers were empty, full of blame-shifting and excuses. She said I wasn't paying enough attention to her. She said she felt neglected, unloved, as if that justified everything she'd done. I could see through her lies. She didn't care about being neglected. She was just a greedy, entitled woman who thought she could have her cake and eat it too. And that's when I made my decision. That night was one of the darkest of my life. After Linda's cold, heartless confession, I walked out of the house and drove around aimlessly for hours. I didn't know where to go or what to do. My entire world had just crumbled around me. 25 years. 25 years of loyalty, of love, of building a life together, and it was all gone in an instant. I felt like a fool, like I had wasted half my life on someone who never really cared about me at all. I parked the car by the ocean and just sat there, staring out at the water. The anger, the betrayal, it was all too much. I kept thinking, how could she do this to me? How could she lie to me, sleep with another man, and act like it was nothing? The weight of it all was unbearable. I couldn't go back home that night. I slept in the car, tossing and turning, my mind racing with thoughts of what I was going to do next. Divorce seemed inevitable, but it wasn't just the divorce that I was thinking about. No, I was thinking about something more, about revenge. She had taken so much from me, disrespected me in the worst possible way. I wasn't going to let her walk away from this unscathed. She had no idea who she was messing with. And the best part? She had no clue about the $40 million. I didn't go home the next morning. I needed space to think, to plan. It wasn't enough to just file for divorce and split everything. That would have been too easy for her. No, Linda had shattered my life, humiliated me, and I wasn't about to let her walk away with half of everything I worked my ass off for. Not without consequences. That $40 million fortune. She didn't even know the half of it. Literally. She thought we were comfortable, maybe sitting on a couple of million. But the truth is, thanks to some smart investments and business deals, my wealth had ballooned in ways she couldn't even comprehend. And she had no clue. For the next few days, I went into stealth mode. I told her I needed time to think, to decide how we were going to proceed. Meanwhile, I was secretly meeting with my lawyer, drawing up the papers, and laying the groundwork for what was going to be my final act of revenge. See, there were loopholes in our prenup, clauses she probably forgot about because she was too busy spending my money on hotels with that loser Mike. I had my lawyer start siphoning funds into accounts she didn't know about, setting things up so that when the divorce went through, Linda would be left with the bare minimum. Just enough to get by, but nowhere near what she thought she was entitled to. She wouldn't see a dime of the fortune I had amassed. But that wasn't all. I also hired a private investigator. If Linda was sloppy enough to get caught by me, I knew there had to be more dirt on her. And I wasn't wrong. The investigator found out that not only was she having an affair with Mike, but she had also been involved with another man a few years back. Some dude she met at her yoga studio. She had been screwing around behind my back for years. That was the final nail in the coffin. I knew exactly how I was going to destroy her, and Mike too. The plan was simple. I'd let her think she was in the clear, that we were heading for a smooth, uncontested divorce. I'd let her think she could run off with Mike and live happily ever after with a chunk of my fortune. And just when she least expected it, I'd pull the rug out from under her. I kept it together whenever I saw her. I pretended to be hurt, confused, and lost, giving her just enough hope that maybe I'd take her back. I wanted her to feel safe, to believe that she could manipulate her way out of this. And then, when the time was right, I struck. 2 months passed. We had a few tense conversations about the divorce, but I played it cool, telling her I didn't want things to get messy. I could see her smugness every time we talked. She was probably thinking about the payday coming her way, the new life she was going to have with Mike. Little did she know, I had already set everything in motion. The day finally came. We were sitting in my lawyer's office, going over the final details of the divorce settlement. Linda sat across from me, all dolled up, acting like she was the victim in all of this. She barely made eye contact with me. But when she did, it was with that same cold, calculating look I had seen the night I confronted her. My lawyer handed over the paperwork, and I watched as Linda's face shifted from fake calm to utter disbelief. What is this?" she stammered, flipping through the pages. "This isn't what we agreed on." "Oh, it's exactly what we agreed on, Linda," I said, leaning back in my chair, a grin spreading across my face. "It's just that you didn't bother reading the fine print. Did you?" Her eyes narrowed. "What fine print? You're screwing me over, James. This isn't fair." "Fair? You want to talk about fair?" I scoffed. "You've been cheating on me for years. You've lied, stolen, and disrespected everything we had. And now you think you're walking away with half of what I built. Not a chance." She threw the papers down, her face turning red. "You can't do this to me. You can't leave me with nothing. Actually, I can. And I have. The prenup is airtight. You get what you came into this marriage with, and I get to keep everything I earned during it. Oh, and don't think I didn't know about the other guy before Mike. This has been going on a lot longer than you thought." Her mouth hung open. For the first time in months, she was speechless. "And Mike," I continued, "that idiot you've been sneaking around with? Let's just say his little business is about to go under. I made sure of it. He's going to wish he never crossed paths with you. I had done my research. Mike was a small-time real estate agent, barely scraping by. I used my connections to make sure his business deals would fall apart. Some shady zoning issues, a few problems with clients, and boom, his reputation was toast. He had no idea what was coming his way, just like Linda. She stared at me, her eyes wide, tears welling up. But it wasn't sadness I saw in her face. It was pure panic. She knew she had lost. Everything she had banked on, her new life with Mike, the money, the security, was crumbling before her eyes. Linda's reaction wasn't what I expected. Instead of breaking down or begging me to reconsider, she turned vicious. I mean, truly vicious. The second she realized she wasn't getting what she wanted, she showed her true colors. "You're a pathetic excuse for a man, James," she spat, her face twisted in anger. "You think you can just ruin my life like this? You'll regret it. You'll be alone, miserable, with no one to love you. No wonder I had to find someone else. You're useless." I stayed calm. I had expected her to lash out. I knew her well enough to predict that when she couldn't manipulate me anymore, she'd go for the throat. But her words didn't hurt. They were just confirmation of what I had always suspected. This woman, The one I had devoted 25 years of my life to was a heartless, selfish monster. And now everyone was going to see it. I stood up, gathered the papers, and smiled. "You've already lost, Linda. You just don't know it yet." And with that, I walked out, leaving her alone in the lawyer's office, fuming. I didn't look back. In the weeks that followed, everything fell apart for Linda and Mike. The divorce was finalized, and she walked away with a fraction of what she thought she was getting. No house, no fortune, no new life with Mike. And Mike, he lost his job. Apparently, he wasn't too happy about that, and their relationship crumbled just as quickly as it had started. Word spread fast. Our kids found out what really happened, and they were furious with her. They barely speak to her now, and honestly, I don't blame them. I don't even think she knows what to do with herself anymore. She's been staying with some distant relatives, trying to pick up the pieces of the life she destroyed. So here I am, 52 years old, newly single, and free from the toxic relationship that almost ruined me. If I've learned anything from this whole ordeal, it's this: trust your gut, don't ignore the signs, and never let anyone take advantage of you, no matter how much history you have with them. If you're reading this and going through something similar, my advice is simple: don't let the cheaters win. Take control of your life, your future, and your happiness. And sometimes the best revenge is simply walking away, after making sure they feel the burn.